would catch them, and he would punish them by cutting off their heads and hanging them up on pikes. And see the TV show kind of doing this again and again. And on TV that works. In comics it doesn't. When you have like 24 pages to tell a story, you got to get right to it.
I see.
So we took out some things that were not necessary, and what we brought into the story is a unique look for each character, so that they could be easily defined and recognizable to our audience who doesn't know them. So like if you see Yi Soon Shin, you want to know that you're looking at Yi Soon Shin and not confuse him with somebody else.
When I watch some Hollywood movies, sometimes these Asian characters are depicted differently in their costumes. Say I think in Sound of Music, which is a different movie, although I heard that the background is set in Austria, but the costumes that they wear in the movie are slightly different from how people must have dressed in Australia back then. So I'm thinking, when you did the research for the costumes, or should I say costumes, the clothing that they wore in your comic books, was it really different from how people wore in Joseon Dynasty, or was that like you had to come up with an interesting looking clothing for Western readers?
That's a great question. Technically, Yi Soon Shin did not wear this armor that you see in the book and that he's so famous for being seen in. That armor was actually introduced in the 1700s, which was 100 years after, close to 100 years after the war ended. I guess when I spoke with people from the Korean Army and Navy, they told me that this was the armor to portray him in, so we stuck with that. And a lot of the uniforms and a lot of the things we have in our book are not particular to the Joseon Dynasty. The reason why we changed things is because we wanted to connect with our Western audience. So we took some liberties. We would show that woman's leg, even though back then it was forbidden, because on one hand, maybe women didn't, show off their legs back then, but we don't know. We didn't exist back then. Even the historians who say that nobody did this, they weren't there at that time. Anything could have happened. So we take those kinds of liberties.
Okay. This is a very interesting question. We talked about how you're thinking about perhaps making this into an animation. But if you were to see this story come out in Hollywood as a movie, who do you want to see playing the role of Admiral Yi Soon Shin?
Well, if I had to stick with like Western actors only, and it would be very difficult to pull this off just because of making giving them the Asian look. But I always, when I hear Yi Soon Shin's voice in my head in the book, I always picture Russell Crowe, like from Gladiator. So like I see like that gruff, commanding presence. And for our villain of the story, Baron So, we were really inspired. I was really inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in Kings of New York and There Will Be Blood. And that look is sort of what we went for. So if I could cast our main bad guy, I'd totally get Daniel Day-Lewis in there.
What are some of the other guys on your list as Admiral Yi Soon Shin?
Well, I really like the guy who played him on the TV show.
Kim Myung-min.
Yeah, Kim Myung-min. Yeah, he's the guy who he's the best guy for the role. And if I could work with him at some point, that would be an honor. Yeah.
Let's take a quick break here and take a look at this question sent in by one of your friends for you to take a look and answer.
Sure.
Chung Byung-woong is a professor at Soonchunhyang University who also worked as a director at the Research Institute of Yi Soon Shin from 2005 to 2008. Mr. Chung met Kompan through Korea Tourism Organization in Chicago and is giving a lot of help in the production of Yi Soon Shin comic book.
한국인도 이순신을 잘 그리는 것이 뭐 쉽지 않은데 외국인이 손수 자기가 여러 가지 비용을 들이고 해서 이순신을 그리는 그런 선양하는 사업에 앞장선다고 해서 저는 절로 고마워서 제가 직접 찾아가서 만나고 하게 됐습니다. 콤판 씨 안녕하세요. 이순신 알리기에 만화를 열심히 그려서 이순신 알리기에 동참해 주신데 고마워요. 그때 본인이 자비로 이렇게 많은 비용을 들여서 만화를 그리는데 혹시라도 적자가 나더라도 앞으로 계속 사업을 진행할 수 있는 의향이 있는지 묻고 싶네요.
The question is yes, we will carry on no matter what it takes. And we're in this for the long haul. And again, quoting Admiral Yi, Yi's famous quote where, you know, those who seek death shall live and those who seek life shall die. So we will make this happen. We will get every single book done. We will see this through to the end.
So far, 4 issues have come out. How many issues should we expect?
We're planning to do another 8 books, and basically we're working on the 2nd series now, and it's called YI SOON SHIN Fallen Avenger, and it picks up right where the 4th issue leaves off, and it takes us through to the Battle of Myeongyang, and we're going to see a 5-year jump, and a lot of things change throughout this arc.
Let's take another quick break here, because on our talk show we have a new segment called The Know-How of My Life, where our guests give a short lecture to our viewers.
Great. All right, so today I'm going to talk about the art of making Western-style comics to kind of give our Korean and worldwide audience a sense of what we did differently. What I've noticed over the last, growing up actually, is that Asian culture has had a significant impact on Western culture. So with YI SOON SHIN, we're kind of doing the opposite. Now Western culture is having an effect on Asian culture with this product. So I'm just kind of I'll walk everybody through a sense of what we did differently in order to make this book more Western style. So basically, the most important thing is that you have to keep in mind when you're introducing a product to your consumer is the significance of the covers, because that's the first thing they see. But you have to ask yourself, what are they looking at first? Are they going to look at the actual artwork, or are they going to actually look at the title of your book? And test marketing the product, we discovered that it was actually the opposite. People were looking at the title first. And when you're in a comic book store, you have to keep in mind that books are on racks. And it depends on the store you go to as well. Some stores will just have your book out on display, but YI SOON SHIN is not a mainstream book, so it gets kind of mixed in with everything else. And when we had this book first come out, what would happen was it was put on racks, and it was on the 3rd level, so basically everything from here down got cut out, so nobody could see anything. They just saw this big number 1 here. So the first thing that we changed was putting the title up horizontally. Now, having the title vertically like this is what you see in a lot of Japanese manga and Korean manhwa. So, like I said, the first thing we changed when we introduced this book to the American audience, once we were done test marketing it, was putting the title up horizontally. Now, no matter where the book is, it can be behind, you know, stacks of books. You can still see the title of the book and know what you're looking for. The second cover, we came up with this design originally. This is our main villain of the story. His name is Baron So, and he's a character that we made up for the series. And in issue 2, we formally introduce him. We kind of get a hint of his presence at the end of issue 1, but issue 2 is where he kind of takes center stage. And the one thing that we wanted to capture in this cover is that YI SOON SHIN is going to die in this book. So it kind of builds up anticipation, and that's something that's really important when you're pushing forward with your book. You want to build up the hype, and then you want to deliver on it. So here we go. We introduce our main villain in here, and we put him in the center stage, and we don't want to lose track of him. You always want to keep your villain in place. And our 3rd issue cover was a little bit more subtle. We decided to focus on the turtle ships, and we set up for this in the beginning of issue 2 as well. So not only did we introduce our main villain in issue 2, we also set up for the introduction of the Kobuk-sun at the Battle of Sachon. And the original idea of these ships was actually to look beautiful, but in truth, that was what they were actually trying to do. They were trying to build this beautiful looking ship with this dragon head. But in our book, we fictionalized it a little bit, made the dragon ships more terrifying and scary, because that's what the Western audience finds interesting. They want to look at something and be taken somewhere else. So that was what inspired the issue 3 cover. Originally with the issue 4 cover, I was thinking about continuing that idea of suspense. The problem with that is nobody knows who Yi Soon Shin is in the West. That's something we just have to kind of come to terms with. So having a cover like this didn't maximize the effect of Yi Soon Shin being this brilliant commander and in charge of everything. Here he kind of looks like he's almost going to be defeated. And it's great for setting up suspense, and it's a beautiful piece of art, but it just wasn't enough for us to really encompass that this was a book about a strong leader. So we took a step back, and we were actually taking a look at different covers and things like that. And one of the covers we were really inspired by was a very, very old cover for the Avengers, which was drawn by Jack Kirby back in the day and written by Stan Lee. When this cover came out, this was like the dramatic return of Captain America. And when you see him on this cover, I mean, he just pops out. He is in command of this cover. And it's just such a beautiful piece of artwork because Jack Kirby is a legend. He is probably one of the only artists in the entire industry that is ever able to just draw from any singular point and go up. And it's just amazing. Most artists start at the head, from what I understand. I don't know anything about art, but to my understanding, most artists start from the head. Kirby was able to start from the legs. Again, I might be wrong about that, but that's, to my understanding, what made him such a unique artist. And aside from that, he just knew how to capture things from pen. He knew how to tell a story with his art. So that inspired our issue 4 cover, which takes the attention and puts it back on Yi Soon Shin. Now he's in command of his own book again. And this is a cover we're really proud of, and it took a very long time to come up with this concept. Once we saw this was it. And that's pretty much how we came about making our covers. For the graphic novel, what we wanted to do was we wanted to encompass the history of Yi Soon Shin. When I came to Korea in 2008, I was nearby Yosu, and there was a museum over there, and there was this really cool looking mural. So I took a few pictures of it, and I brought it back to the U.S. And when it was time to make the cover for the graphic novel, I wanted that mural to inspire the artwork for the book. So what you'll notice here is Yi Soon Shin's in the center, and here are his soldiers and the people who fought alongside him, and there's some cool stuff in the background like turtle ships and all that. Well, our graphic novel cover ended up being more of like a montage. So we have a sense of the fact that the Japanese are coming, like they're coming towards us. They're a threat. They're something that, they're the bad guys. And here we've centralized all our main heroes in the story. You have Yi Soon Shin, you have Won Kyun, you have Yi Soon Shin's high-ranking officer, Kwon Chun, his lieutenant, Song, and his other fellow commander, Leoki. And this kind of puts them all together. Now, a lot of publishers look at this and they say, okay, this is a little too subtle and it doesn't really pop out and things like that. But the great thing about this cover is first off, it's very colorful and it gets your attention. Yi Soon Shin definitely pops out over here. And it's just a beautiful piece of artwork. It's detailed. It's not we didn't skip out on anything, and it's based on something that was actually put together. So, an actual mural. So that was something we really liked. And we have our villain kind of looming over in the bottom, and it's something that doesn't really catch your attention at first, but that's what makes it so cool, is that when you go back and look at the cover again, this is something that just sort of gets your attention. So now, before I wrap this up, I'm just going to kind of give you a sense of how we actually put this together and actually show you what we do and give you a sense of what the storytelling process of our book is. And in comics, the art must always serve the story. And it's not just in comics, it's in any form of entertainment. If you're, whether it's TV, movies, even musicals, whatever, everything serves a story. If there's no story,